everybody, and welcome to Life After Death and Beyond with me, James from Praagh, and my cohort, Kellee White. Hello, Kellee.
Hi, James. Hi, everybody.
We have one heck of a show.
We
have a podcast today. It's Kellee and myself, and it's we plan these things a little bit in advance, but things change and things happen. Life changes, so we're very open to moving things around and whatever is meant to happen and be talked about on that day or shown to you, we do that. So today's show has changed slightly for what's going on. So we are going to do a show tonight about predictions, yes. But Kellee will just talk in a minute about her weekend, which she spent the entire weekend looking up astrology and working on astrology and different aspects of astrology, not only for this upcoming election and the rest of this year, but beginning of next year. And the way we're going to work that is I'm going to channel. Now, what does that mean? Well, as many of you might have noticed before when I've worked with Kellee and I've done the show, certain things come through to me. We have a guest on a certain topic who's speaking. All of a sudden, I bring through something. And it comes from my guides, if you will, or a certain guide. We had that one guide, Kellee. What was her name? I don't remember. She would always show up behind me. This
Samantha? No.
Samantha. I think it was Samantha, like the witch. And so tonight we thought we'd just be very open. Mediumship, the way I work with mediumship, is to be very open and surrender to whatever is meant to be, because the spirit world knows what's going to happen and they're really in charge. I have Pearl on my couch over here, throwing all the pillows on the floor. So if you hear her, that's her. But what I thought, the other day, my friend Caroline, who passed over, came through. I told you this, Kellee. And I was waiting. She finally came through. And I said, I haven't been seeing you. And she got very upset. She said, I'm always around you. You're in my blanket. I told you this last week. You're in my universe. Anyway, she said to me yesterday, as I'm driving home from the dog park, she said, I want to tell everybody about the word emanations. So when we come and see you people, we see your emanations, which is energy. Emanations is really, it's tied to a source, and we are that source. And emanations can be our thoughts, what we're thinking, and emanations will have color and a lightness to them or darkness, a patterns to them. So I think when you're a psychic or intuitive person, I think we're all antennas, we're all these radios, and we pick up programs, we send out programs. And I think what intuitives do, and Kellee, you can comment on this, is they pick up the emanations, the sensing, the feelings, if you will. What do you think about that? Yeah?
Yeah. And, we can feel the energy.
And what I want to do with the emanations, I'm going to teach all my students this too in my school about the word emanations. I'd like to do a whole evening of meditation using the word emanations and see what happens. So tonight, what I thought I would do is Kellee is working and talking about astrology and so forth. I'm going to put myself into an altered state of consciousness. Now, I'm not going to go in a deep trance or very deep state, but I'm going to just be open to whatever comes in and the information that comes in. I won't be changed. Not that I'm aware of changing my voice. That might change. It might not. I don't know. I'm just going to open to whatever happens. I just know there's going to be a lot of information coming through to everybody here, through Kellee, through myself, through the spheres, if you will, the spheres of influence. I like that, Kellee. See things like that just coming right away. And there we are. And Kellee's going to talk a lot about astrology, because I think it's really important at this time we're living in this world right now that we know as much as we can. And we have a lot of tools to use in order to understand more about what the time we're living in, the possibilities of what's going to be, the possibilities of what's not going to be, and really just being aware. And in many ways we do that. And Kellee really knows her stuff. And we're going to make predictions based upon astrology and also whatever I bring through, if you will. And you made a prediction, Kellee, last year, didn't you? Last year's show. You want to mention that about Biden, was it?
Oh, it was actually in April. So in April, I made the prediction that Biden would win, and that he'd be there maybe about a month, and that something would happen, and Harris would be the president. And that was Biden's free will. He dropped out, and that timeline changed. So we are in a continuous
timeline. Let me explain to everyone that we were talking about this. Kellee and I talked earlier, and she was telling me about the astrology, and I said she said the timeline has shifted. So when you look at things, and it just came through to me earlier, channeling, if you want to say inspired, that there's a destiny point. And I believe there are destiny points our country must go through, we personally have to go through. But one of the destiny points was to have that things were working out. And then Joe Biden's free will decided to leave, not to run for the election. That changed the timeline. Is that right, Kellee? So, and now, so Kelly's looked into that changed timeline through the planets. There. And what system? You use Vedic system, yeah?
Yes,
Kelly?
Vedic astrology, which is where the planets actually are, truly where they are. It's different than Western.
And before you begin, there's a lot of devastation in the U.S. The Hurricane Helena, and
Helene, yes,
Helene. I don't know why I say Helene, and has caused a lot of devastation. A good friend of ours, Tammy Hendricks, in Asheville, North Carolina, we send her our love, and she's really under it all. And
yeah, it's really devastating what happened in Asheville, all over North Carolina and Florida. It's really awful.
And Georgia, it's just
it's just awful. But Tammy Hendricks set up. There is a GoFundMe page set up and designed to help the people and the community of Asheville and the animals. So the people and the animals, and 100% of the money raised will go right directly to the people there and to the animals. Yeah. So if you would like
Tammy's an animal communicator and a healer.
Yeah. We love Tammy. We've known her for many years.
So it's fantastic. So we're going to put that address on the show tonight. We'll have it on, and Renee will put it in the comments in the community there too, on our chat page. So Kellee, the other thing I want to talk about is today. Weird day started. Astrologically today, it began with a weird astrological or not weird today?
It's all weird because we're headed right into the eclipse on October 2nd. Okay. So today, it's right around a couple days away. It's a very intense.
So we had a big outage today with Verizon. Was outage most of the country.
I went to call James this morning. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't call him. And to be honest, I assumed it was your phone.
More than likely. Because I have a lot of issues on my phone.
And then I said, I couldn't believe it. So my phone was out until 5 p.m. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we're on a verge of a lot of changes and a lot of things that will happen that are coming up right now. It has a lot to do with this eclipse. And this is the last eclipse.
Basically about the astrology and what's coming up and how you get through this and things that you see based upon that as far as prediction wise, and also your own intuition.
Absolutely.
And I'll just jump in whenever
you just jump. But even James, before we start, haven't you noticed that there are a lot of souls that are suddenly exiting, just like in the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020?
I said to a friend of mine yesterday, I said, there's a major exodus. And they said, what? I said, it's a major exodus. It's the window's open for souls to depart.
Yes.
And there are a lot of souls that don't feel they fit in here. And as you said, Kellee, didn't sign up for this particular timeline. And I've noticed a lot of exodus for sure.
A lot of exodus. I mean, we just had Maggie Smith die. I just loved her. And Chris Christopherson, I was a huge fan of his. And then Pete Rose, I found out about an hour ago.
Pete Rose, you just told me. I didn't know. Pete Rose was my name I used anonymously for when I'd go to hotels to book in. I'd use Pete Rose.
How did you come up with that one?
I never knew the one. I have no idea.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk about this because the energy that everybody is feeling right now is this October 2nd eclipse. And it's the final eclipse of 2024. And this eclipse in Vedic astrology, it's in 15 degrees of Virgo in the nakshatra Hasta. And I'm going to explain what all of that means. But this is what they call the Ring of Fire eclipse. And you said something to me today about Ring of Fire, James.
Yeah, and I'm just I'm starting to get automatic writing, so I'll tell you. But I'm starting to get through some stuff. Kellee mentioned Ring of Fire, and I said that's so weird. And because why? And I said, well, I was in Pilates today, and I do Pilates and I do yoga and some combination. And I bought a Pilates device we use, and it's called the Ring of Fire.
So it's unbelievable. So this Ring of Fire eclipse comes along with a comet. At the same time on the eclipse, there will be the brightest comet in the sky. And they call this the comet of the century, James. It's a big deal because comets are omens. They portend something will happen. There will be some event. And don't forget, on April 8th, when we had the last full solar eclipse that went across the United States, there was the Devil's Comet with that. So this brings a lot of change.
Comets bring a lot of change.
A lot of change. They portend something. They bring something is going to happen along with this eclipse. It's not just a regular eclipse. It's a big deal because in astrology, what we do is we look at eclipses for prediction, because that's what tells us what we need to know for the year. And this final eclipse in Vedic astrology is in Virgo. And Virgo is about health and healing and service. And it's a Ketu eclipse. It's a South Node eclipse. And South Node has to do with karma. It's so also on that day, on October 2nd.
I'm sorry, excuse me. What is the South Node in?
It's in Virgo.
It's in Virgo, you said. Okay. And it's going toward Pisces?
No. The North Node is in Pisces. Yes, the North Node is in Pisces. But this is a South. But this is a South Node, which has to do with spirituality, totally. In fact, if anything, James, this will be a spiritual awakening for many people. Just will be. But also, on the day of the eclipse, October 2nd, 2024, it is an 11-day in numerology. And an 11-day is a very, very powerful day, because it means illumination. And what was the word you were using before with Carolyn? Emanation. Yeah. And 11 is the master teacher. And 11 means to push the limit between darkness and light, or ignorance and enlightenment. It's a huge, huge day. Ironically, on April 8th, on that large eclipse that went across the United States, that also was an 11-2 day. So now we're having, two major eclipses with 11s and comets. This will change the world. This will change the world.
Kellee, now, just to interrupt you, if you don't mind me, just because I remember to tell you this. Today, I was in my driveway and I looked over. My roommate Eric was up there, and all of a sudden I saw something go. It must have been 3 feet off the ground, and I looked like it was a hawk, and it was like 4 feet off the ground, right in front of me, and
right in front of you, and
right on a tree next to me.
Okay, so that has meaning. Whenever you see anything like that, and you and I have been together where we saw
the hawk.
That means, because it's not just change for the world, James, which is, of course, we're looking at, but it also means change for us personally. Everybody will have change during this time. So the hawk absolutely represents the male psychic.
Right.
And so you'll have some sort of change. The hawk is telling you that.
Every day would change.
Every day, yeah.
Major changes these days.
Major changes. Sure. Well, this eclipse on October 2nd will be seen in South America and the Pacific. Now, that's important, because there are going to be thousands of skywalkers or sky watchers actually on Easter Island, which is right off of Chile. So Easter Island, interesting enough, that's where the remnants of ancient Lemuria are. And also Easter Island has one of Lemuria's sacred mountain peaks. So the energy from the eclipse is going to be shining down on Easter Island to bring out what I believe are healing abilities to so many souls on earth right now, that will bring in ancient wisdom, profound healing, and healers, because this is a time of great change. Eclipses mean this. If you're on this road, all of a sudden you're going to be on this road. It will change your road, and it will make people that have been kind of on the fence, I'm a healer, but I don't know how to do this or whatever. It's interesting. All of a sudden everybody's going to check into their own healing ways and modalities. And it's going to be a profound gift for the world, because later I'll be talking about Saturn, which on October 3rd goes into the celestial house of Shatabishak, which means 100 healers. So the healing wisdom, because Saturn is actually in Aquarius, will go out for humanity. So this is a very important, how I love to put the dots together on codes. I love that, I'm an Arcturian. What can I say? I live for this kind of stuff.
So Kellee, obviously, so the healing aspects, would that be readily noticeable within a month or two, or is that an ongoing process?
It's a great question. This eclipse will last for about 6 months. The energy will be 6 months. So let's say, it doesn't mean on that day, all of a sudden I change and I become a healer. Doesn't, or whatever the change will be, because everybody will have a change. It will bring in awareness. But the change, I'll tell you this, James, in 2000, we had an eclipse just like this. And a week later, I had my traumatic brain injury, and that changed my life. So I'm very sensitive to eclipses. And so here we go with this. So it's a big deal because the effects of a solar eclipse represent endings and new beginnings. And a solar eclipse like this will indicate a turning point in life. It'll bring new insights, and it means the beginning of a new cycle. And I can't stress what I'm about to say enough, but please, everybody, take time to make peace with the past. This is a time that you can actually go inward on October 2nd, go inward and really think about, what is it that I either need help with? What do I need to work on? Like, be really honest with yourself, because this is going to be a time to let go of things. And I'm not saying that just let go. I mean, if you need help, get help. But this is the time for that, because you really want to look at what have you been holding on to? Because anything that you're holding on to, you're holding energy. And that energy that you were talking about, James, earlier, that light, if you're holding on to all of this stuff, where's the light going to go?
It influences those emanations. It's in part of those emanations. So if you can't forgive somebody, that blocked energy goes out. That's blocking. Your whole life gets affected if you can't forgive somebody.
Absolutely. And during the next
Kellee, as we're talking and things came in that I want to say, one, when you're talking about newness, I saw visually, I was shown like a washcloth, if you will, and wringing it out, and the water drop was falling. And I said, what is that? And they were like, well, this is like the soul being wrung out. Newness is coming in, wringing out the old, bringing the new, and that soul, that newness. So it's funny, you talk about the newness. And I was just getting a lot of things that are changing between now, which is, let's say, October 1st, till spring, like this winter, lots of big changes coming.
Yes, yeah. And I like that analogy. That's a good one.
Because
we will feel like we're being wrung out.
Yeah. And you will be met. I was getting also different things here. Technology changes completely. And what we know now is technology will be old very quickly. And it goes down to a simple little, like, I don't know, they showed me a little disc, a little ring, like almost like a little battery, lithium battery type little battery. That's where all the information is stored. This is what they were showing me. It's going to be like that, whatever that means. And everyone will know that. And systems are going to start changing, exploding, if you will, letting go. Things that they also told me when you were talking, that the reason why all these things are happening and feels like going backwards in the planet, it says because we're forcing you to look at your reality and question your realities. That's why. You need to question the reality that you're perceiving, because it's not real. And they just kept on talking about you need to perceive the reality, understand it's not what you think it is. It's something very different. And it takes breaking structures down and in some ways, systems. It'll be a system breakdown and a reshuffling.
You're right on. You're right on.
Well, they are. Yeah, that's why it's going to be a system breakdown and reshuffling. And the reality will shift perceptions. And all the people you thought were this way are not. And you'll find out that underneath and behind the curtain is something very different. Something's very different playing out. And I think that political structures, as we know, will change. I think that the world will experience war again. I think the Middle East is gone. That's done. It's going to be, that's where it's going to start. I think it's not too far away, as we all know. But I think it's going to end up being really bad for the whole world. I really do.
I'll back that up astrologically, what you're saying.
And I think there'll be a nuclear strike somewhere.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's a very intense time, James.
It's around water. I don't know where, but I know there's an intense, there's an explosion. It looks like a nuclear explosion. And I believe that. I believe that. I just heard out about the pagers that went off and people were killed by pagers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was like, what? So, I mean, I'm not watching the news. I'm watching the news in 4 or 5 months now. I don't want to. But I just can't have that darkness no reason to.
But I'll back up a lot of the things that you're saying.
Go right ahead, Kellee.
Because I love what you're saying. I mean, not the information, but how you're bringing it.
A lot of postponement. There we go. I got a lot of delay. Things will be delayed. What you think is the way it is going to be delayed. You said about timeline earlier. Timeline changes. Things are delayed.
Like this. It's just back and forth, back and forth. So during the next few weeks and the months and the next year, or next even couple of years, people are going to be fragmented. And what I mean by that is their friends and families are going to fragment.
Okay, wait. I wrote this down. It says family relationships shift.
Oh my gosh. There you go.
Family relationships are changing as we know it. They will never be the same. Family, like the structure of a family, will change. It will not be what we expect it to be. So he's right on.
Right on. And all of this is going to make each of us go inward. And you're going to ask yourself, who are you? Really? And it's not a punishment time. We wanted to be here for this time.
And Kellee, it's a time for people to empower themselves.
Yes. To have a spiritual awakening, James.
A spiritual awakening is you're a soul having a human experience, not the other way around. You are a soul, and try to empower yourself as a soul.
Yes.
We're not, like Kellee said, we're not just dropped down here. We chose to be here. And because it's one of the many millions of schools for the soul. Very hard one, but we can grow very quickly here, advance quickly.
Right. Well, this Ketu eclipse, because Ketu is a destroyer. Ketu doesn't care, doesn't give a damn about how you feel to knock things out. It just lets you have it. And so Ketu can bring us together through calamities and events that have been witnessed by others or by everyone. So we're all going to see comments.
I see opportunity. Sorry, I have to. When they come in, I just got to just go with it because it's so fast. When you said the word calamities, I opened a space and they said there'll be many opportunities for others to bring their heart to another, to help people, to bring their heart to another. There'll be many opportunities afforded you to bring your heart to another, to awaken them by your act of kindness.
So everything comes back to kindness and empathy and compassion. And so we will have those experiences with what you just
said.
Opportunities. Those opportunities.
Flooding. It might come through people being hurt. There are different ways we can help one another. However, we can do that. And now, as they just said, there'll be opportunities afforded you for your soul to bring your heart to another. That's interesting. Heart to another. Okay.
Well, solar eclipses change. They'll change what goes to about 6 months or even longer. So you may not see anything now, but I will say this. You'll look back and you'll say, wow, did we witness a lot? Did I go through a lot? That's what people are going to think. And Ketu, I have to say this, is correlated with Ganesh. Now, you remember Ganesh. Ganesh is the desk. Right? I have one back here. Yeah. Ganesh is the deity that is responsible for the remover of obstacles. Yeah. So what Ganesh does is it removes things that we do not need anymore. So Ketu is the south node of the moon, known as the dragon's tail. It's a detached planet. It does not show any emotion. It doesn't care. It's about getting things done. And so here's the results of Ketu. Karmic lessons will be learned, especially lessons from past life. You know how, James, people will say, well, that's not fair, and I never did anything in this life. Well, guess what? Ketu looks at past lives, and it also looks at natural healing. So again, I want to go back to the healing aspect, and it looks at deep spiritualism, because people can talk a good game about spiritualism, but this is going to really bring people to have deep spiritual experiences.
Well, I'm also just picking up very strongly as it places in my mind, as you said, that healing. They talk about natural remedies. You'll see more and more and more of this in your world. Natural remedies from the plant kingdom that will happen. Like right now, we're seeing everywhere in California, you have dispensaries, marijuana, and now mushrooms and all that sort of thing. And but they're showing me this lovely fields of all these different herbs and things and trees. And of course, we know that nature is the number one healer. But there are going to be remedies from the land that we do not know yet. But yes, go on. They're talking to me, and they're talking to me about corporate world will not be able to touch this. They'll try to own it, but it's not going to happen. There's going to be other ways in, just like they're talking about like this dispensary things. That's ways. Of course, corporations don't own that, but they're going to talk about ways in, remedies of the nature. There's remedies of nature, and they won't be able to touch them. Corporations won't be able to touch it. That's interesting, because our healthcare system is going to break.
Yes.
Sorry, but it's going to break.
Yes.
Starting to January, February, good luck. Getting blood, good luck. Medicine, good luck. I just know that. I know that next year's rough. I know that I've seen very much in CVS in the future empty shelves. Empty shelves.
Gosh.
And I don't mean to scare people, but this is what I'm seeing very clearly. And we're in for a rough time.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Again, this eclipse has a lot to do with purging your old emotions, to make space for more light to come in, and it's a reset. And it really is going to encourage all of us to get out of the old ways of thinking. And when you get out of the old ways of thinking, you step out of the old timeline, and that's important.
That's so funny you're saying this. We're so in sync. They just gave me this. We're opposite of backwards.
There you go. There you go. Okay. So I love that.
That's a weird way of putting it.
So Virgo is an earth sign, and it's an earth sign, which has to do with health and healing and structure in your life. So one of the themes of this eclipse will be self-improvement. Really work on your health. Remember what Greg Braden said to us, James? He said, work on your health and keep it really good for the next 10 years. Remember when he said that to us?
Yeah.
Focus on your routine. Question your old habits. If you're smoking, if you're drinking, if you're doing whatever, really start getting in touch with, it's time to do a lot of healing on yourself. Also, I have to say this, James, that during this time, during this eclipse, Mercury is in Virgo, and that might bring problems of interruptions to commerce and business and written agreements and communication and transportation and education and rallies and speeches. So we're going to see a lot of, well, in fact, the longshoremen, I think, or the maritime workers may be on strike tomorrow.
There'll be a time where the ATM machines don't work.
Oh, dear.
Beware of that, everybody.
Dear.
Sorry to sound so negative. That's what I'm seeing. When you said commerce.
Yeah.
I just think that the old systems that we count on, even today, like that Verizon thing, the outage, you can easily have the internet gone easily. Oh. And it's going to happen eventually. So, I mean, just bear that in mind, everybody, when you're looking at things. You know, it's funny. I'm talking to George and Ron yesterday. Kellee, they were here visiting. And George and I talked about cell phones. How people are so much rely on their cell phone that if you don't text them back in 5 minutes, they get freaked out. I mean, think about that, everybody, because one day will come. Yeah, and one day will come. We don't have the cell phone working.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Oh, my gosh. Well, also, because it's in Virgo, we're going to see earth changes, earthquakes, floods. Look what just happened. Fires. It's going to, continue to happen. And this is really about unresolved issues coming forward so you can take care of them. I want to also make sure that everybody watches their animals on this eclipse, because our fur babies are extra sensitive. And you'll see, James, like I know my dogs, all animals start to really act up. They can feel it. I remember in April, my dog Charlotte refused to go outside. She just refused. We couldn't pull her out. So watch the babies, because they're very sensitive to this. And I just want to say that on the day of the solar eclipse on October 2nd, set your intentions. Really practice gratitude, do meditation, journal. I mean, those are the kind of things that you can do on that energy. So that's October 2nd. And that, again, there's a lot of energy that lasts for months with this. But on October 3rd, Saturn.
Wait, Kellee, before you go there, because you're just like spouting out.
I should say, what do you want? Go ahead. I know I've got a lot of info.
I want to go back to October 2nd, because I just heard this very strongly. And you said, it's a time of healing. Everybody, and you said journaling, which is great. I just heard from Spirit, give yourself a gift every day. Change it every day with a gift for your soul, for yourself. Gift yourself something different.
Great idea.
I went to butt sweatpants today. That was a big gift for myself. I don't do that. But do something different. Go to a different restaurant. Go look at a beautiful point of view of the ocean, the seashore, or the trees. Do something different each day. I think it'd be good to do that, get to that routine.
It's a great idea. And what that does is it brings in new ways to see things.
A new awareness. It opens up that space for newness.
Yeah, no, I think that's
and
great.
You start seeing yourself in a different way as well.
Right. Well, on October 3rd, Saturn, which is in Aquarius in Vedic astrology, it is retrograde, but it changes celestial houses, and it goes into this house called Shatabisha. And what does that mean? It actually denotes a sword, and it means to fight. It reflects a fight. And Saturn, you have to remember, Saturn is karma, it's health, It's a very intense time. And when this happens, it sets us up for healing for humanity. So there'll be a great healing in humanity.
But it doesn't have to be something that occurs first.
Yes, but it's preparing for that, James. That's why I mention it now. It's preparing for something that will happen. Okay. Because we'll also on the 3rd, and during this time that Saturn is in this position, we are going to feel this pressure, this kind of, you know how when people will call me all the time or they'll say, what's going on with this energy? This is a heavy duty pressure that comes onto the planet. So it makes us a little tense.
I've been feeling that for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. No
doubt about it.
But what it will do is it make us look at our health issues as well. So whatever health issues.
I just get very strongly, they're telling me that there's a new organization going to be formed to help people, aka like the Red Cross or UNICEF or the United Nations is going to help. It's going to be a whole new organization for the world, a worldwide organization for health and for helping, like the Red Cross in that same way, if you will. But there's more technology involved. AI will change things. I think there's going to be a breakthrough healing work and somebody healing, but medical work. AI is going to be shown really strongly by the end of the year, very strong. And I think there's going to be small little battles in end of October, November. Small little battles, whether it's in the Middle East, that begins something like a domino effect, is what I want to say.
Well, that all absolutely happens.
That makes sense. That's what
totally makes sense.
They're showing me this.
Totally makes sense, James. And October 9th.
They don't want to scare people. They want to make people aware. That's all.
Yeah. Yes. On October 9th, Jupiter, the largest planet, the benefic planet,
Scorpio.
No, it's in Taurus. It's 27 degrees in Taurus. Jupiter.
Oh.
And it is about spiritual growth. And when it stations to go retrograde at 27 degrees, it makes it extremely powerful. And there will be a crisis of faith, and it will change. Everybody's going to reassess their political views, their ethics, the plans for the future. It's a very intense time when this happens. It's just coming down the road to happen. And conflicts will increase, James.
Yeah, and there's going to be people that believe in how can I say this? Showing me breakdowns of religious organizations.
Yes.
Yes. The political religious organizations are going to shift. They trust these people, and they're going to say, "Oh, they're just business people. They just want money, or whatever it is." They're going to see them start to crumble. The heads of it, if you will, the people that are in the forefront.
Also, it has ideological clashes, so that brings wars. Then we're looking at Israel and Lebanon.
Yeah.
It's a very large thing. And these are just dates that are just coming up, but they affect for months. This October is so powerful because it affects for months. So October 11th, Pluto stations direct in Capricorn. So that means it's been retrograde, and it goes direct in the new phase, James, of the United States Pluto return. So this is going to affect the United States greatly. And
when is that? What's the date, Kelly?
It starts on April 11th.
Okay.
And that's a time that activates the next phase of a revolutionary cycle. So Pluto indicates the elimination of the old. And if you think about it, it gives you the power for this process. And Pluto is like Kellee. You've heard of Kellee the Destructor?
Sure.
The Destroyer. So Pluto is what it does. It transforms these old, outworn ideas, and it gets very intense. So I'm leading up to November 5th. That's why I'm going through all of the planets to tell you where they're headed.
Well, that was April, though. So you're going back.
No. This is now.
Oh, this is past April you were talking about.
I was talking about it in April, but it's happening now too. Also,
I see.
It's happening actually on October 11.
Okay.
So yes, it did happen in April, and it's coming back.
I'm half here. I'm half there. Sorry.
I understand. Now, on October 20th, Mars, the planet of war, it transits into Cancer. It is debilitated in Cancer, which means it's weak. And that means the fire energy is unbalanced. And when Mars gets unbalanced, it gets frustrated and agitated, and it can't express itself in a normal way. It feels frustration. It's very powerful when this happens. And when that happens, that can be serious economic problems, to what you were saying, James. It's a big deal.
What date is that?
That's October 20th all the way to January 20th.
Let me write that down.
Yeah, well, I'll give this to you, but you can go ahead and write it down. It's a big deal when this happens, because what happens is Mars actually transits into the 8th house of the United States. And that could actually indicate a political subterfuge, the death of a world leader. It could increase violent crime, financial stress.
I think Netanyahu might be killed.
Wow.
Yep, I do. I just got that hit.
Wow. I believe that there will be assassination attempts that will continue on all sides of the party.
Assassination attempts, Kellee. Yeah. I feel like there's a season of it. It's weird, but I feel like people are going to it's just so strange.
It is. And then right after that, James, Mars is going to conjunct Mercury, and that indicates extremism. Okay, that means confrontations, censorship battles, media problems. It's very intense. Again, October, very intense. But here's where it gets
even more intense.
Could it get any more intense, Kellee? Yes, it could, and it does. October 27th to November 9th. Now, that's right. The election is November 5th. So October 27th to November 9th, Mars and Pluto are in opposition, James.
Wow.
Now, Mars, a planet of war that's debilitated and agitated, and Pluto, which is in Capricorn, which is very strong, it indicates upheaval and change. So that can be a warlike time, a ruthless time. It's very intense during this time. And James, the last time this happened occurred with the American Revolutionary War, and before that, the French Revolution.
Wow.
So let's talk about Election Day in the United States, November 5th. That is a very intense day. Now, you have heard me say that both candidates have very strong charts. They were both born on a full moon. Isn't that interesting?
Is that right?
They bring you power. But on that day, it's a very nefarious day. And that's the word I'm using.
I love that word, nefarious.
And yes, nefarious. It's brings huge challenges. And so on that day, the United States chart, it has a debilitated Mars, has a debilitated sun, which is, the sun is weak. The sun represents the leader. And Venus, Mercury, and the moon are hidden in Scorpio. So, and also Saturn and Jupiter are retrograde. It's a deflated day. We're going to go to the polls to vote, and it's just deflated day.
There's no outcome that day.
That's exactly, I don't believe in the slightest that we would have an outcome that day. There is just no way. And both charts, both candidates, for somebody to think that it's she's going to win by this, and that's just not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. This is going to be neck and neck, and I believe whoever the candidate wins, because I actually don't know. And anybody that says they know, I don't see how they can. These timelines are shifting left and right constantly. And that day, I will say Trump has a very strong chart that day. And she has a less strong chart, but her vice president candidate has a very strong chart. Harris has a very strong, Waltz has a very strong chart, where J.D. Vance has a weak chart. So nobody's going to be able to predict this one. This is like going on a roller coaster ride that you get so intense and you get stuck upside down. That's what it feels like to me, James. So we're not going to have an answer. And I think it's all nefarious energy. I think it's going to be very intense for days and days and days after that, months after that.
I got a sense this.
So what say you?
Let's say you. I just heard undermining your political system. There'll be an undermining of your political system, and it'll change. It'll be an undermining of your political system. And there's going to be introduced a new kind of legislation, but it's going to be a paper. It's going to be some kind of not a new constitution, and it won't be Project 2025. I don't see that, but I see there's going to be some kind of something drawn up, if you will, like a constitution, like independence. It's going to be drawn up, and they're going to it's going to deal with a lot of the different political ways in, ways out structures. I think they're also going to question. It's going to be extremes as it is now, but it's even more extreme. And they're going to question lobbyists. They're going to question influencers. They're going to start questioning that, because I do believe that there's a new wave, or this wave of young people, young voters, are changing things up, and that is part of the system breakdown. I don't think it's going to remain the same, because these young souls, these waves of young souls that have come in, who are now able to vote, are going to change things up. They're not going to put up with the system the way they are. So
I agree. And here's another thing that I'll add to this, that in June, Uranus, the planet of shock and surprise, which is transited into Taurus. And the last time that this went into Taurus was in 1940 to 1948, for 8 years during World War II. And before that, 1856 to 1864, the Civil War. Yeah. So this is what this energy represents.
Yeah, it's an interesting energy, because I feel like I've felt it before, and I know I lived during the Civil War. I drew a picture of myself. Yeah.
You know, James, it really, that I always said that the COVID, when that happened, had a lot to do with the karma of the Civil War.
Well, this is very interesting, and I don't know if I said this to you before, Kellee, or a friend of mine said it, or it came through me somehow. Maybe it was, I don't remember. Do you remember this? And I just heard it again. You always come back during war times.
I do remember that.
Remember that? You always come back during war times. So there are souls that choose to come back to this time period for wartime. So that's very interesting. And I can relate to that. I know as a general in many wars, I know what it feels like when there's a war, the energy. I've had visions here where I live of bombs. And, well, I told you, when that morning I woke up and it was a whole nightmare the night before. It was, it was bad when the U.S. was involved. Yep.
So this is intense energy coming up. And I'm sorry, I can't say this one wins or this one wins. I just can't. It's the timelines are just too volatile right now. And it's going to remain that way.
You know, a friend of mine said today, which I think is really important, that everybody don't lose perspective of who you are. There is a lot of conditions will shift in your life. So, you know, perhaps, let's say you're a tree on the side of a mountain. And, you know, as let's say this big tree, there a pine tree perhaps, or a wonderful tree on this mountain. And as life goes on, the mountain changes, in that conditions change. There's winter that comes upon, and the tree has to support snow. And life kind of goes down and sleeps, hibernates for a while. Then we have springtime coming up, and there's a newness, and new things grow in the tree and all around the grasses and flowers. And then you have summer, the hotness of the summer. And then, of course, deal with that and the dryness and dehydration, whatever. Then you get back, then, of course, winter. We got the fall, and then winter starts over again. But the tree is always there. The tree will always stand. The mountain, the conditions might shift. So in human life, the conditions will always be shifting, as all of you know now, because you've already survived a lot of the different conditions.
Yeah. I mean, haven't we been through a lot already? We have, right? I mean, it's really set us up to be able to do this, to handle this energy.
They have the strength to do this and go through this. And as souls that chose to be here at this time, this is what we signed up for, folks.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
It would be kind of boring if there was nothing else happening.
Wouldn't you take boring?
I think little less boring.
I think I take boring right now.
Well, I'm actually going to be in New Jersey in a couple of weeks for 3 different gigs, and I want to tell everybody about that because I haven't been out on the road in quite a while, over a year now.
No, you went out with me.
I went out with Kellee in Chicago. That's right.
Yeah, in July, and then we went to New York too.
That's right. That's right. And so now I'm back out in New Jersey, and it's going to be in Philadelphia. The first one is Philadelphia. It's the 10th. And then I'll be in Unity Church and Asbury Park. So hopefully Bruce Springsteen will come to my gig in Asbury Park. And then the last one is going to be in Bergen County. It'll be Bergen Pack Performing Arts Center. That's the 16th of October. And it's all on my website, vanpraagh.com. But I was looking at those dates and I was like, should I go? And I felt very nervous. And then I got this overwhelming wave of light and energy from the spirit world saying, the people need you. They need you now to go out and do this. And so I started getting excited. So I'm excited to go out and do that. But
James, it's going to be great. And anybody
fun.
who gets to go see you.
But yeah, then my own.
We just did it, but it's going to be so fun.
It's going to be different. Yeah, very, very fun. Yeah. It's been, last time I really was out there was out in a big thing was with Gordon in Scotland. And
That's right.
That was a year ago now. And that's when I got double pneumonia and COVID and the whole thing.
I remember.
You remember the COVID, and you were part of it. And the double pneumonia, that was a year ago, Kellee. A year ago. Didn't that fly?
It's hard to fathom. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But we're still here. And again, the conditions that we, will change in the world. And, I never, I just say I still have myself. I still can enjoy me, who I am. And, I stopped watching the news, like I mentioned, and it's been good. You got to be careful where you place your mind, and where do you place your mind? What are your points of interest? Because again, what do you emanate toward? What's interesting in your mind? What do you fill yourself up with? It's really
absolutely right
really
on. And
what here and I'm doing it's just making you aware of what we see, what we feel and sense, and also astrologically, what Kellee can interpret from those symbols and signs and planets. And
also, you have mediumship too. You have that coming up.
Mediumship
right?
too. Yes, it's yes. We're just going to have a big seminar. So now's the time to sign up. I think next week we're stopping it. So a lot of interest. We're going to change things up a bit. So mediumship 2 is available for everyone. Yeah, it's a great course. And what do you have going on, Kellee?
Well, I have something interesting. Well, I've got my book Cracked Open, which is still doing
still number one. And it's been how many weeks now?
5, almost 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And
I've had people call me, friends that call me and say, "My God, Kellee's book, I can't believe it." I know, it's amazing. I've had several people call me about it, and they love it. And everybody loves your picture in the front of it too.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Michelle just did a great job. I mean, I'm so happy about this. Also, I don't think you know this, but Janelle Campbell and I are going to be teaching a class in December. I think it's December 6th. On angels, archangels, and angels.
Oh, that's great. Oh, great.
Because I think the world needs that now. We will really need it by then.
That's great. You did a course together before.
We have. And so we love working with her.
It was on, what was it on? Star Beings?
Star Seeds, yeah, Intergalactic. Yeah.
And that was phenomenal. I would love that course. I'm glad doing angels. Wow.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be great. So, and the world needs that.
The world needs it for sure.
Well,
thanks, Kellee.
Thank you, James. I loved everything that you were downloaded, all the information that you gave. It really does correlate with everything.
It's amazing how it just similar information, just come a different way of seeing it. And it's pretty amazing. Yeah. So gift yourself something, everybody, and God bless you. Thanks, Kellee. Thanks, Renee.
Thanks, James.
Thanks everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.